and welcome. My name is Ajaxpost and this is the long-awaited, well at least long-promised, Let's Play series for Transport Fever. The sequel to Train Fever, which I ran a Let's Play of last year. Long anticipated and interesting looking enhancement on the old game, which I think was the first game from that particular development team, and a fine job they did of it. Of course it didn't suit everyone. All these games have particular pros and cons. The one missing I think from that game was competition, which I always felt was a fun part of the old Transport Tycoon games and Railroad Tycoon and so on. So it really was just a build it up kind of game, construct a network and basically not go bankrupt. Now Transport Fever hasn't addressed that. It doesn't have any competition in it. There's no other company building infrastructure or transport routes other than yourself, so it's basically a construction game still. But what they have done is they've added in to the buses, trucks, trains that we had in the old game. They've added, as you can see here, aeroplanes and boats. So it's now a kind of complete transport infrastructure game, which is going to be interesting. They've perked up, but they've enhanced it in a number of ways, which we'll see as we go through. Obviously, the maps are bigger. The industry chains are more complex, and as we'll discover, making money is actually more difficult. Anyway, let's get on with it. We'll have a quick look at the settings. Notice it comes actually with a tutorial, which is quite nice. It takes you through a half dozen or more scenarios, which are coded and modded in such a way to provide specific instruction on how to do things, much like the campaign as well. There are two. There's one for a European map and one for an American map, so you've still basically got the two map types in the game as we had in Train Fever. The campaign is actually very useful, although it has a different setup and configuration of how some of the buildings and the mechanics of the thing work. It does give you a good insight into how to link things up and the objectives of the game in general terms. So if you're new to it, I do recommend the tutorial and the campaign, at least to get to grips with how the whole thing works, rather than going straight into the deep end, into the building, into the free game as it were. The campaign does get more difficult, as I discovered. I don't think I actually completed it in all, but hey ho, there you are. Anyway, the free game is the build it how you will and they will come kind of game. That's what we're going to be playing. But first off, let's have a quick look at the settings. Got all these settings here. The game was only released last November 2016, and there are people still saying it's not been entirely properly optimized in terms of performance. So you may find you need to adjust the graphics settings in particular, especially on the larger maps. I've not had that problem, but to be honest, I've not played that far into the future. So I'm going to keep these settings here as they are for the moment and see how it goes. As you can see, I've got a reasonably good PC. It's not the latest and greatest, but it's reasonably good at graphics settings. So I'll keep that until I decide it doesn't work very well. Audio, you've got all sorts of voiceover. Oh yes, of course. I think that's the campaign, isn't it? In the campaign, you've got someone explaining the whole thing to you. I don't think that appears in the free game, as it were. We'll see, won't we? Actually, you can set your controls for the mouse and keyboard hotkeys, if you will. I'm not going to mess with those. Hopefully, they won't interfere too much with me. Though to be honest, I still do get a little bit lost in the menu system, but to be honest, that happens in a lot of games, so that's me rather than this game itself. And if you're working in an American, European or English environment, you can set up your weights and measures as you will. Now I believe there is an issue with some of these measurements, in that if I set, for example, mile, which I've done here because I'm English, in case you hadn't actually noticed, it tries to measure the lengths of the trains in miles, which might work in America where they have huge great trains, but that tends not to be the case in Europe, or certainly not in England. I don't think you have huge trains quite like you do in the States in Europe. Anyway, vehicle lifetime, I'm just going to keep things simple. Actually, I'm not sure what the 3D does there. I don't know. And the advanced, that's just saving sessions and so on. Again, I'll just leave it as it is. We'll save every year, which might give us a little bit of a pause, a hang on the year turnover. Let's go to set the game up. You can select either a European scenario or a USA, which basically is the map style, the vehicles you're going to get in the game, and the names of the towns. Beyond that, the game experience is exactly the same. You just get a different set of toys to play with, if you will. And one nice thing here is that you can actually select whatever year you want to start playing the game in. On the old Train Fever, you actually had to achieve 1900 when you first played the game before it would unlock the later years, as I recall. I'm not going to play on hard because I've not really I've not finished a game yet, so I'm not sure I'm competent enough to budget as a harder level. So I'll just go medium, see how I cope. Now here's the interesting thing: the world size. It can either be small or medium or large, and I can't honestly tell you what that actually means. But obviously they're bigger, one than the other. I think the maps generally are bigger than they were in Train Fever. But the interesting thing here is, again, it's a matter of sort of the gameplay perhaps, and how you want your map, your world to look. You can either have a long, thin map, a 1:3 ratio map, or sort of mid-size, longer than wide, or you can have a square map. I'm going to play square actually. A lot of people seem to prefer the longer ones, but I'm going to see what happens with a medium. Again, I don't have the best and the greatest, the newest PC components, so I'm going to try and sort of minimise any performance risk I might experience by just going medium on there. Now custom, which is what I'm going to be playing here. You don't get achievements, Steam achievements that is, if you play it in advanced or custom mode. As soon as you start adding mods, you lose the chance to gain achievements, which is a bit mean really if you're one of those people who likes to sort of chase achievements. I don't care about them particularly, so I'm not bothered, but people like to get them. They're a nice sort of, you get a nice cachet, kudos for achieving something within the game, but that's the way it is here. I'm going to start by not putting any mods in, but what I've discovered is, certainly in the early years, there's a long gap between some of the earliest vehicles, so I will probably start introducing mods like I did in Train Fever, but I'll try and be more controlled about it this time. Last time I just threw everything I found into the game, and it was a whole mishmash of European, English, American, all sorts of models. They look good. I'm not saying they didn't. There's some great modders out there creating great objects for the game, but they weren't aesthetically consistent. But I will start doing that at some point early in the game. And here you can set which set of vehicles and stuff you want to use. Again, we're going to be mostly European. Yeah, I could change. The European is a green map basically. The American is a sandy desert kind of yellow map. I like green, to be honest, so I'm going to stay with that. The one thing I'm going to do is make sure my town names are English, and I'll come to that shortly. And again, I could use all the vehicles, which would give me a greater scope of vehicles to choose from. I'm just going to stick European for the moment. And see what happens. Well, this game is going to be European. You can't really change this once you get the game started. So let's get on with it. So custom, everything else is set. Right, we're going to start right at the beginning of the game. I'm going to use a seed. Again, a bit like Train Fever. I don't think this makes any real difference if I send you this seed code, Ajaxpost. I don't think you'll get the same map that I get, but we'll see, because I just played this a second ago, with the same seed and see what happens. See if I get the same list of town names. Anyway, this takes a minute or two to actually bring the map up to screen. It's a bit slower than Train Fever, so I will hit start and we will be back in a few moments. And here we are on the map. Check my music volumes are set to. I'll stick it up to 3 and see how that comes out in the recording. It's okay for me over my headphones. It should be okay on recording, but we will see. Now, this map, it does look different to the one I chose before with the same seed. Or does it? No, it is quite different. One thing I should have mentioned when I was looking at setting the game up is with the mods, the game is integrated much more neatly into Steam, into the Steam Workshop. So you can just go to the workshop, the community pages for Transport Fever, and select your mods as you desire and subscribe to them, and then they will appear in that list of available mods that we saw in the game. I'm not sure about actually subscribing directly from within the game, but I'm not going to worry about that. It's a technical thing, and you're not here for technical stuff, are you? If you are, then do ask me a question and I will let you know if I can find the answer. Does that annoy you? That annoys the hell out of me. Newport, Shropshire. Actually, best stop the game because I'm still losing money, potentially. It's called Newport. It is in Shropshire because it's not the Newport in Gwent, South Wales. But I don't like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few minutes here off camera to reset some of these town names, because we can do that. So I can actually rename this town. I'm not going to call it Newport. Oh, the editing here is a bit better than it used to be in Train Fever, but still not sort of Windows, Microsoft Office kind of standards, so that's going to confuse me occasionally, and I do apologise for that in advance. I'm going to call it Newbury. There you are. So you can change names of the towns. I'm not sure that affects the names of the industry. No, that's still Newport Shropshire Farm. Slightly annoying, but there you are. At least my stations will be called Newbury and not Newport. Anyway, as I was saying, I'm just going to take a moment to rename some of these towns to names that I recognise and mean something to me, and then we'll be back straight into the game. I'll be back with you momentarily. Well, there we are. Okay, so I have adjusted the map ever so slightly, just put some town names in which I recognised, and in doing so I discovered there's an interesting limitation on the game. If I take this here, now initially this, what I've called Newbury, and I've left the comma in there. Oh, that's careless of me. Okay, there we go, that's better. So as I say, what I was doing here, if I rename this, there is actually a limit to how much I can type in. I can't change that at all because I don't have the same number of characters available to me as the developers did when they were naming these objects in the first place. So I've left all the industry names as they were, and I'll deal with those as we come to it. Okay, so I'm happy with the map. Names I recognise, which I might remember. Hey ho, who knows. Right, now the first thing I normally do is go to the information panel, yeah, and just check what the population is of my towns. Where's my most populous town? Exeter. That's very popular. There's a large population there, as is Coventry, Thiel, and indeed Newbury. Now, are any of these close? Now Coventry and Newbury are quite close. So that's good for a passenger line to start with. And the question is, do they have industry nearby which would help feed their growth and give me money? Okay, now what we've got here are farms. Now that produces corn and livestock, or arable and livestock if you will, but is there somewhere that will turn that into something edible? I don't think there is. Just looking at, there's one up there near Exeter, which turns either farm produce into bread, food, bread, whatever, it's all the same. And that's it. There's one here which turns corn into plastic. The interesting thing here about the industry change as well is that industry and commerce and the residential areas require different goods. So if you're going to fully satisfy your town requirements and get the town growing, you're going to need to supply a different arrangement of goods for each area that you want to prioritise. So I imagine it's possible to actually have a town which is almost entirely industrial and just feeding it with industrial products, and then that'll be set up alongside a residential town which would feed passengers into it for work and so on. So that's an interesting scenario that we could play with. Now, okay, so I'm just looking for somewhere to, so Thiel and Whitchurch. Again, they're reasonably close. The worry here is contours. Now, one thing we've learnt, I've been watching other people play this game as they've got it. So it's been out since November 2016, and one thing which everyone says, why pause the game? Tis pause, good. I don't want to be losing money unnecessarily. Is it's a lot more expensive to lay down tracks and transport. So you've got to be sure, as sure you can, that your route is as flat as it can be, because contours will introduce gradients. Gradients make your vehicles slower, and they cost money to get over. Now you see here, Coventry to Churchill, there's gradients going on here. So that will mean a slower train. In 1850, trains ain't fast. Where's my town list again? So Kintbury, that's down here somewhere. There it is. Ooh, look at those contours. That's tight. That's going to be steep. I've got a hilly map here. This is going to be interesting. I think I'm going to stick here with Coventry and Newbury for my passenger route, if I can navigate this gradient. Okay, let's do that. So the first thing we need to do is work out where we're going to place a station. And what we've got here, two types of station already in the game. We've got the standard station type, which is basically a straight through, or you do have a terminal station which terminates at that town. Now, which ones? That is 154, 128. Are they the same length? They are. Yeah, I can't remember. When I first played this show, I used terminal stations rather than straight throughs. I can't remember why. Now Newbury is going to be a kind of terminal station, isn't it? Because again, a station is either passenger or cargo. You can't mix them up. So cargo isn't going to be going to my passenger station. Okay, now the next thing to notice here, over and above contours, the population map, or the building map. So we've got here industrial, we've got here commercial and residential, and what we need to do is make sure our town station hits those. Now they've improved a little bit the snapping of your stations, but it does mean you can't easily turn them, I think. Can you? No. And I've just placed that. Right, I'm losing money already. Can I demolish that? Yeah. Okay. Right, so that's ruined the contours already. Right, you saw there it highlighted that area, and that's the catchment area, which is new in Transport Fever. In Train Fever, it was a matter of could they get there by walking within 20 minutes. And if they could, or rather, could they get from where they start to where they want to end up in 20 minutes? And if they could, they will travel by foot to that station or bus stop or whatever. Now everyone has a catchment limit, a catchment area rather. So you need to make sure that you're delivering passengers to a place they will want to go. Now can I? And one nice little thing here is it actually allows you to demolish buildings while you're putting down roads, which of course risks it being very expensive, but it makes it simpler. And can I get a little road in there? If I can get a little road in there, then I can put a station along here. We should catch both those. The reason my catchment area didn't go much beyond here is because the foot traffic has to travel all the way around there to get here, rather than sort of travelling from here by road. So it is a sort of by whichever route they can get there kind of catchment area. Okay. If I knock down that, can I get a little road in there? Oh, the answer is yes I can, but it is only a little road. Let's accept that. Now can I upgrade it? Where's my upgrade? There it is, to that. No. So it's going to be a slow road, but that's fine because all we've got at the moment is horse-drawn tracks, horse-drawn carriages. So right, that's better. And the other thing to bear in mind is sometimes to keep things flat, the game makes choices for you which end up being very expensive. You see, look at that. If I keep... okay, that's fine. Now, when I first laid this, it came to 44 something, or 40k, which is more than I want to spend at this point in the game on a piece of road, so I think we can keep that less than that. There you are, I think that's better. And that looks reasonably flat. I mean, the trouble is doing it in little sections means you run the risk of lots of ups and downs on the road, or indeed the track, which is the risk of keeping your... or slowing down your vehicle. Okay. Actually, that's much better. So now this is passengers, so I want it. Actually, I need them to get commercial for shopping, and residences obviously to. If I do it there, yeah, I think that will work. So we're going to take a smallish, a medium-sized platform, just the one track at the moment. That's all we can afford. Let's slip that in there. Okay. The other great thing you can do in this game as well is you can actually upgrade stations in situ. No more of that nonsense having to delete them and then put a new one back in its place and hopefully everything worked. Okay. Now I think we can put a station in here. Yeah, which keeps us off to the side of that hill, which is good. But to make passengers get there more easily, that's it, draw that. Okay, so that again provides passengers a route to go from here to there without going all the way through the town centre. What I'll do, I think, is put the station here. I've still got collisions. If I delete that, let's just draw a little bit of track out. Okay, let's put my train station. I'm trying to get it. That will do, I think. Now if I put it around here, so it gets a much larger group of people all together straight away. But I'm going to employ stagecoaches. Actually, I mean actually it might work better around there. because there's nothing off to this side of the map apart from going through those awful hills, so it's going to have to go up anyway. So it might actually make more sense to put it on that side, or at least around here. I think that works. Okay, that's that job done. Okay, now laying track. We've only got one speed track at the moment, and you have the same old problem that you had in Train Fever, as it loves drawing large arcs, very expensive arcs as well. So rather than spending $1 million going up there, we'll do it a lot less by doing it in smaller chunks. But we will need to keep our eye on the contours and the gradients of the track. So bear with me while we lay this out. I want to keep reasonably south of that big hill, so go up there, I think. I started with a $2 million loan. You see, I can make it cheaper by doing it myself. I think. I'm not losing any speed. Let's do it that way. So I've got a $2 million loan to start with. I think what most people have discovered playing the game so far is that you need to take out loans, large loans, quite early in the game, which is going to be tough for me because I don't like doing that. But there is a sort of minor trick to repaying them. I need to get back up now, so I need to go around here a bit, I think. This is nice and cheap. Now. This is up quite a steep incline here, I think, so just check we can actually make it. We can, but that's expensive. Let's come out. Is that a result of my earlier misplaced station, putting that awful gradient in there? It probably is, isn't it? And look at that, that's costly. But I've got to do it. Actually, that's not too bad. It actually came out better than it did first time round. I'll accept that. Okay, right, so there we have our first track between Newbury and Coventry. We're going to stick our depot. There's only one default type of depot, I think, in the game. I'm not sure if this increases or another one appears later in the game. And what we'll do actually is if I draw track out from here. Now, one of the great things they've allowed us to do in the game is to have tracks cutting across each other. So you can do that, which you can never do in the old game, but it does sometimes make joining tracks a little trickier to spot, particularly if you don't have a close zoom in on the game. So I don't want to go quite that far out. And you don't need to be fast approaching a depot. And the slower the better. Okay, if we put our depot in there. $50? Ooh, you don't want it to cost that much. Let's bring it down. That should reduce the cost of the depot as well. Yeah, being flatter on the ground. Okay, Cool. Right, we'll set up our line for our next line now. Our first line. That's the line report, not the line creation. This is the one I want. There's a new line going from Newbury to Coventry. Isn't that magical? Right. Now, what trains do we have available to us? One. D13, whatever that is. 123k, that's okay, I can buy that. And neat little thing here, the thing is remembering you've done it, is you can colour things now, so you can create specific company or corporate colours, if you will. I'm going to go with a bright red, or a slightly darker red. No, let's go with a bright red. Okay, we'll go with that. And passenger wagons. Now this is where costs start kicking in. These passenger wagons, in fact all sort of carrying trucks, trucks, trailers, whatever it is, they are vehicles are expensive in the game now, more so than they were before, and you start paying a lot more running costs per year. So keeping revenue and profit up is tough in the early years. So what we'll do is we won't buy too many to start with. Just buy 3. Hopefully that will work for us. Okay. Well, I'll change the name of the line momentarily, but I just want to get you to see it coming out and doing the travelling thing. Let's get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. So, let's unpause the game. Oh, I didn't send it to the line, did I? That's true, man's an idiot. Ah, dear. Trivial mistake. It was a bit of a kink, isn't it, down there? So here he comes. The first train in the Ajaxpost Transport Fever Let's Play series. And they have the colour scheme. So you can either do that as a corporate one, or perhaps each different line might have a different colour scheme or some such. And we can follow the train as we've always been able to do from Train Fever. Well, the other great thing you can do is you can get a ride-on view from the front. Look at that! Isn't that wonderful? And again, the graphics, I mean, they may not be groundbreaking, they may not be, you know, the most fabulous photorealistic graphics images that you could imagine, but for this sort of game I think they work rather nicely. Ooh, yeah, who's going up? It's filling up. It's going to Coventry. I think it would tell us if there were passengers, but there ain't. Well, that's kind of expected at this stage of the game. So let's get him going a bit faster. So what we'll do, I will wrap this up here, I think. Just a sort of quick intro to the series. We'll start it off. And we'll start seeing him make money, hopefully, in the next episode. And I'll start exploring some of these other buttons as they crop up as well within the game. Curious thing about they have drivers and passengers on buses and stuff now. So if when people passengers join a service, they will appear on the vehicle as well. But they all have this kind of heads-up look to them, which is kind of weird. I wonder what they're actually looking at, but you know, it's something, isn't it? I suppose. Okay, so we are rapidly approaching Coventry. What I'm going to do, just like I did in Train Fever, like you have to really, is because there's a catchment area now for these stations, which doesn't cover everyone within the town. The next episode we will get to putting in the bus stops or the stagecoach stops within the towns, to feed passengers into the railway stations. Let's slow this down a bit. Should we take another ride on? Yeah, why not? You can't move the camera angle from here. You are sat on the front of the vehicle, and that's it. Here we are coming into Coventry, our first station stop on the new Ajaxpost track. Oh, is that passengers? It is! I've got a passenger already! Oh, that is fabulous. I wasn't really expecting that, but he's here. I have a passenger, and he's in there. Is that him there? I think it is. Amazing. Right, so that will be it, I think, for this episode. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this little introduction to our game. Let's just follow the train as it goes through. Doesn't that look lovely and gleaming? It won't always look like that. One of the other things they've added to this game is aging. So your vehicles will look old. They will rust and get dirty. Anyway, I just stop distracting myself. Thank you so much for watching this. If you've enjoyed it, please do leave us a like. Any thoughts or suggestions on where to go next, or if you have any particular mods that you think would work really nicely in the game, and please do suggest some. There's a lot on Steam. Trying to find the best ones can sometimes take a little bit of time and effort, but I'm going to put that in. If you've got any suggestions, please do so. And of course, if you've not already done it, why not subscribe, and then you can follow me as we follow our vehicles through our lovely English map here. I love that mountain. Anyway, from me, Ajaxpost, until next time, bye bye for now.